Today I'm going to talk about suffering. It's not a subject that many people really understand because when you are suffering, you are so much into it that it's hard to think clearly about it. And face it, as a Christian people, we have a lot of theology on suffering. And it's very confusing sometimes because we have a God of goodness. Why are we suffering? We've heard the Bible version, well, Adam and Eve sinned, and then as a result, we were convicted basically to life of suffering. Even though God came and suffered for us, we still had the consequences of original sin. And sometimes that is so hard to fathom God when we talk like that, because it sounds like God's like, well, you blew it, you disobeyed me, now suffer. And that's just not true. The reason Jesus came and died for us was to take on our sufferings. We can't even imagine what we'd probably be suffering like if Jesus wouldn't have helped us. He literally entered into every single suffering we had. He suffered that first. He suffered that through his death and passion, the Garden of Gethsemane. He saw all of that and he entered into it. Why doesn't that seem to console us? Because we are in it. When we're suffering, it's sort of lonely. And people don't understand us. And sometimes people might even say, oh, quit whining, quit complaining, quit suffering. You're not allowed to suffer. And to some extent, we probably do overdo it. And it gets tiresome to hear it. But I think one of the reasons that makes suffering even hard is we don't understand the purpose. We don't understand it. And as a theology student, I remember being in a class discussion in my master's, and they're talking about suffering, and our professor goes, well, if you're serving Christ, you're going to suffer. It's inevitable, so get ready to suffer, everybody. And there was this little babble across the room, like, well, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to suffer. What do you mean I'm going to suffer? And it freaked them out. It did. And the right term was, when you do the right thing, you're going to come up against stuff. And you can run from it and you can hide, but you're never going to hide from suffering. What you're going to do is choose how you suffer. And as mysterious as that sounds, there's something true to it. I'll explain. When you suffer because you're entering into doing something good, there's some consolation with it. When you suffer because you're doing naughty things or you're an awful person, there's no consolation. You just get bitter and you get angry and you blame God. Of course, why not? Isn't God to blame for everything bad? It's ridiculous. But yet we still suffer, and it is very hard to suffer, and we don't always understand, especially when we're suffering. And this is kind of what I've come up with the theology and just my own personal experiences. We're all going to suffer, but I think, at least for me, when I suffered the most, it was because of me. It was on me. I became negative. I made excuses for it. I even added to things in my life that made me suffer. For instance, I don't eat good. I don't worry about exercise. And then one day I injure my back. Well, guess who added to that? Yes, genetic predisposition, but I added to it. Not on purpose, but I did. Was it fair for me to go, okay, God, what are you thinking? No, but we do it. And God understands too. He knows what it is to suffer. So the one thing I really want to stress here is that sometimes in theology, it gets confusing, and it goes back to my class. Sometimes people are afraid to follow Christ or to become holy because they hear of dark nights and purgation and all these horrible things that are going to happen to you, right? And it's confusing, and who wants to do that? But what they don't say is, you're not going to suffer unlimited. You suffer in life. And when you have to make good decisions, you're going to suffer. And sometimes things happen to you. It's all part of our free will. And God allows it sometimes. But he's not saying, I want you to be holy, and guess what's going to happen to you now? No, he doesn't. But he's going to take what you do suffer, and he's going to use it to help sanctify you. He's going to use it to help you get patient. He's going to learn you some virtues. He's going to learn you some virtues. He's going to do things to help you. He's going to show you ways to help other people, to have empathy for other people who have suffering. That's what it means. You know, the most difficult thing for me to hear is, if you are holy, you will want God to suffer you things. Send me suffering, Lord. I want to suffer. Give me everything. Don't ever do that. Sometimes he does. Why? Because your pride. You're like, oh, I can take this, Jesus. It's better to say, well, Jesus, just send me what I can handle and allow what I can handle and be there. And I know if you allow something, I know you're not up there throwing thunderbolts and lightning at me. And please help me get through this. Trust in God. Suffering helps you trust in God. It helps you to trust in the one person who loves you so much and doesn't will that you suffer all the time. Sometimes we don't even let God heal us. It's like, this is my suffering. This is my identity. Get out of here, God. Get out of here. This is who I am. And it becomes like your identity, and don't let that happen. You're not meant to suffer all the time. You're not. In fact, if God allows suffering, he allows joy and consolation too. He's not going to beat you down to the ground. He's not. So be positive and don't worry about suffering. Go out there and realize in life there are risks. And when you take them, holding on to God's hands, guess what? You're going to get through it. It reminds me of a dream I once had. And in the dream, I saw Jesus and we were on top of this hill and we're looking down the road. And down the road, there's this terrible, terrible storm. And Jesus is like, got this tarp and he's saying, hey, do you want to go with me? And I looked at the storm and looked at him and I go, yeah, because you know what? You're with me. And I did. And then I woke up. What a relevant dream. Remember that. Under Jesus' tarp, you're never going to drown and you're not going to get killed by lightning. God bless you.